Tuesday's session. Any feedback, any questions from Tuesday's session?
I don't think so.
Yeah?
We were just doing a quick hello.
Okay. So today I am going to go over, so today's topic is frameworks for different industry, right? And I was trying to figure out how to give you a template. I think the template that I shared the first day with different Excel spreadsheet with different columns, that is the best inclusive template that you all can use. And I think Sky also sent one of the template that he uses. There are a lot of similarities between the one I sent and one Sky was going to send or sent. I'm not sure yet. So
Deb, just so you know that he did not send anything to me. I have the link to the IRR analysis that he popped up. But those
I'll check with him. I'll check with him, and I'll send everything to you in one email tomorrow, with both the pitch, sessions as well as then you can attach the recording, and then. So I'll check with Sky. So for today's session, what I thought, go over the 4 most important things that are common in all types of industry, all startup, all startups. And then I was going to give you a flavoring of 5 different startups in 5 different industry. And I wanted you guys to ask yourself the questions that we are going to go over in the generic, that do you think this is a good investment? So there are a lot of slides in that, and I thought maybe we can continue. If we don't finish everything, we can continue tomorrow during the office hour to go through these 5 startups in different industries. So does that sound okay with everyone? Yeah, okay. All right, let me share my screen. Kate, can you enable?
Oh, yep. 1 sec. Okay, should be good.
All right, thank you. All right, can everyone see it? I'm assuming yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm asking those questions because my internet is so flaky. So, please speak up if you can't hear me or see anything. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that everything is okay. And I'm actually going to stop my video, okay? Because I just want to make sure that I don't lose you guys. So I'm going to stop my video. All right. So frameworks. So the framework that we went over in different sections for the last 5 sessions, starting from attracting deal flow, well, understanding the ecosystem, attracting, deal flow, and different sources of receiving deal flow. And then the last 3 sessions we spent in doing the due diligence. So framework is something that is the product of all that, right? That we have, we would use individual, a template, or in a template form, or in a thought process form, or in the way we approach the due diligence for the companies that we are looking at. So today I am just going to go over a few slides on the generic 4 things that are most important for me to look at in any startup, and I'm going to make a little bit of distinctions and go deeper into them. Okay. Okay. So the industries I explore, right? So what are some of the industries that, so if I look at all the startups that I've seen in last 7-8 years, this is where most of the startups that I have seen in the last 8 years. Last 2 years I've seen some food, but it's still like, it's not as even though it's one of the important pieces of my thesis, I haven't seen that many food related deals for one reason or the other. And when I did this morning, I realized, oh, where are my food startups? Why are they not showing up here? Because they are less than like 75 deals that I've seen. So overall, these are the industries that I have seen most of the deals in, that either I've invested in or I have passed. And out of this, I am a big investor in, like big meaning, my thesis as a majority of the percentage is in software, SaaS, and enterprise, which is whether it's financial services or e-commerce, or based in enterprise-related startups.
Hey, Jag.
Yes.
Can you just clarify, because you've mentioned your investments in, you've said food. Can you clarify for everybody, is that in more on the food tech side, or is that something like a new line of like plant-based granola bars?
Yeah, it's more CPG. So it's, it's more CPG. It's not in the food tech, no. So it's food and beverage. I've invested in 2 water companies and 4 food companies. They're CPGs, and 1 alcohol company. Okay, so that's why it's not showing up, and I'm going to have to figure out, am I making the right investment percentage-wise? Because I feel like I'm heavily in food. My portfolio is, maybe 5% of it is in food, and if it's not showing up here, then there is something. I'm not getting the number of deals that I should be looking at in order to invest, 5% or 25% of my portfolio. But overall, over the last 8 years, it's 5%. All right, any questions there? So the first thing I want you guys to think about is, do we pay attention to the market size or compounded annual growth rate, right? So there are different theses around that, and this is just an example. If you look at the market size, we say that, oh, market size has to be, $10 billion serviceable, market size. Why 10 billion? Because 1% of 10 billion is $100 million. And realistically, as a startup, you say, I'm going to go after 1% of the market. So 1% of the 10 billion is usually, it is 100 million, and 100 million is usually a sweet spot for VCs to start investing in, or consider putting money into early stage or pre-Series A or around Series A startups. So you will see that a lot of the startups market size is always around 10 billion. So how do we pay attention to that, or do we also ask them, what is your compounded annual growth rate? So if it's a mature market, right, and you are investing in a mature market, then the market size is more important. But if you are investing in a growth market, then I believe the CAGR will give you a better result, because there is so much more potential to fill that gap in the market, if that makes sense. So in this example, if you look at a 20% growth on a mature market, if you look at the CAGR for a mature market is usually 2% year over year. In the growth market, it is about 20%, growth year over year. So if you calculate the 2% and 20%, year 0, that's where you're starting, the market size is about $10 billion for a mature market, which is like, wow, that's a great, healthy market size. But for the growth market, the market size is only 5 billion. So if you're looking at a startup in year 0, chances are you're going to be attracted to a mature market because it has a market size of $10 billion versus a growth startup, which has a market size of 5 billion. So what I'm asking you to do is to consider this not only at the point you are at, or market size wise, but played out for another 5, 6, 7 years, because that's the life cycle of a exit, right, from entry to exit, around average is 7 years. So if you look at a mature startup in a mature market, they start out with a healthy market size, but by year 7, their growth is a little bit more stagnant, right? It goes from 10 billion to 11.5 billion. Versus a growth startup, they start up at maybe half the market size, but because of they are still growing into this new, the market, it can be up to $17.9 million market size at the end of year 7. So when you are looking at the market size, and if you have a CAGR data, always figure out how to compare this for the startup that you're looking at, if they're in a mature industry or a growth industry, and if you're making a decision between the two to make an investment.
Hey, Jags.
Yes.
We've got a good question from Christy. Christy, do you want to ask your question? I'm happy to do it too.
Sure. Sorry, I'm going back on video. Okay, so my question for Jags on this, I typically am really, I'm really intrigued by early stage, so friends and family, seed round. If you're that early in looking at a company, maybe it's like before they even have their full product development and everything, is it possible to really have an accurate assessment like this of market size? Is that separate from the actual company, or are they like intertwined? Is it really like later on in Series A or Series B that you actually would be able to have a better assessment of the market size?
Yeah, great question. And that's $1 billion question, right? Like, how do you know early on, right? Like Airbnb went IPO today. We didn't think that it could be in the market. To me, that was already a very mature market where there are hotels and bed and bath, bed and breakfast. So how would they be able to enter and grow in this market? So to answer your question, it is very hard early on. And at the friends and family round or the seed round, you do your own due diligence, right? Even founder may not be able to give you the data because they really don't know, but you can do your due diligence and you can find out a similar product or similar company if they have any kind of growth rate metrics or anything that's available, even if it's in the industry that is a little different but has some similarity. You can take a guess on and you can know if this product or if this startup is going into a mature market or if it is going into it's in a growth category, right? So based on that, you can figure out, and if this is something that after you invest in the seed round or family or friends round, you want to do pro rata or you will not want to do pro rata, right? You assumably will have a right to do pro rata at least in the next 2 rounds. So in those rounds, you can also figure out, do I want to be in this knowing what I know now? Okay, I didn't have all the information before, but do I want to continue or do I want to make my contribution knowing what I know now? So there are ways to get the data, and it's a lot of looking at Crunchbase, looking at CB Insights, Hello Reports, PitchBook, talking to other investors, knowing who else isn't playing in this market. They should have a pretty healthy idea about the competition. So even looking at their competition, even though they may not be exactly same. So I think you can get some of that information from other sources, even though founders may not have that available. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's really helpful answer. Thank you. And one follow-up on that is, and this is a little more general, when you're looking early stage, this kind of like leads into what you just said. Is it more like you're definitely taking on more risk? It's definitely more of a leap of faith, but do you feel like there's far more of like just listening to your gut and your intuition instead of looking at hard numbers, because that's to me how it feels.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm not the only person who's like has really thinks about my gut intuition, because in my other professional life, it's like you're really looking at hard numbers. You have them, but with this, it's if it's
Yeah.
early, you just don't have the data. So thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself, and I encourage others to chime in. So, Christine,
Yeah.
I don't feel like we are the only people. But yeah, your gut plays a big part. But now I'm going to challenge your gut and ask your gut a question: that is this because you know the person, or do you really have conviction for what they are creating? That is also something that you should, ask your gut, which I do. Do others have anything to share?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there was something that came up in the last couple calls, and I'm glad you raised this, because I was going to also raise it. You know, I think this is super important, and I definitely want to learn more of this aspect. But I do feel like some of this becomes increasingly important at later stage, and I think we need to know it. But for me, yeah, I think ultimately, the primary two things that I look at is, well, first of all, does it light me up? Is it something that I want to contribute beyond capital?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to jump on calls? Do I want to use my network to help them? And if I don't get kind of excited about it, then I don't bother. And then I look at team and overall market size. If I can really see the true kind of market potential, and I really believe that that team has what it takes to succeed, then those are, then yes, I rely on gut. I expect to see that they've thought through all these, aspects of kind of future planning, but I don't go into much detail at all in terms of DD, of looking at whether they've got the numbers right beyond, the first year or so. Apart from overall market sizing, I want to make sure that that's like valid, and that when they're and I would say one of the areas where in terms of market sizing that I get more specific is how have they broken down TAM, SAM, SOM? Because you could have this massive TAM, and you usually should, but is there some like really achievable, the portion of that, is it really achievable in the kind of time, like in the next 3 to 5 years? I go in a little deeper on that part. But yeah, I trust my gut, and I also will consult with other people that either know them or that know that kind of sector or that problem they're trying to solve better than I do, and I use that, but I ultimately come back to my gut.
Yeah. And all we are doing with learning about this is, I believe that we should always trust our gut, because we have a pretty strong instinct as human beings, right? All we are doing is we are supporting our gut by the knowledge, right? Ultimately, you're going to know that, if it feels good, you're going to know it. And if you have conviction, that's the word that I said, do I have conviction towards it? Does it fit my thesis? So what we are going over this is going to start you off on your journey as an angel investor, so you can ask right questions, you can do your own due diligence, you can listen to your gut instinct, but also get support from the community, from other investors if you have questions. So and that's how I make investments. Another thing, because we're talking about TAM, SAM, SOM, I had an opportunity to talk to an amazing person in Canada, Charles Plant, and he has research on unicorn math. And he went over, the definitions of TAM, SAM, SOM, and how most founders and get it wrong. When they say TAM, they're looking at total addressable market. But what his theory is that's great, but total addressable market shouldn't be everybody and anybody out there. It should be the people who are actually spending the money currently on something else that they would then spend it on using your product or service. And I know a lot of the people, when they're calculating TAM, they do not look at it from that perspective. So, so what he's saying that there is actually another circle called PAM, potential addressable market, and that is equal to current TAM. The TAM, it should be actually whatever the customers are currently spending money on, they are going to either stop that and spend money on your product. That's the market, that's the value of the TAM. So, I'm not saying that I completely agree or disagree with it, but it's just a different perspective. And I have his entire research and he sent it to me via email. If you guys are interested in reading through the pages and pages, I think he has a lot of great opinions on that. But again, all that gets more used as you are going from Series A, Series B, Series C, may not be that useful when we are doing literally early stage first MVP types of investment. So let me know if you guys are interested. I'm happy to share that with you. Okay, any other question on this before I go forward? Okay, the second is a founder, right? So we say, we have a lot of faith in founder, and that should be the way it is. But however, a good founder is a nice to have, but a good founder with a unique insight is a need to have. And good founders with unique industry insights are best positioned to action on their startup's vision. So when we are looking at the founding team, solo founder, multiple founders, whatever it is, you really want to look at certain characteristics. Do they have, are they coachable? Do they listen? Are they, all those things that we talked about earlier about founder. But the most important is they may have industry knowledge, but do they have the industry insights in order to make this startup, very successful? Let me give you an example. So one of the 500 startup companies was named, it's named Pluto. Does anybody know what Pluto does?
Are you talking about the network?
No. So Pluto is the pillow company.
Oh.
What they do, so it's a pillow company that you can actually kind of design your own pillow, just like a mattress, right? Casper, Purple, Satwa. You need customizable pillow. That company is doing really good. But the unique thing about that the company is they did so much research on understanding the user, but also the founder had a really, really unique industry insights on how often people buy pillows, how often, and he was in that industry before. So he was building a brand, Pluto brand, the customized pillow, AI sourced, if you want a firm pillow or soft pillow, you answer a whole bunch of questions, and then it kind of creates a pillow using, the artificial intelligence algorithms, whatever. And then 18 months, you get another, pillow in the mail, or, whatever, because that's what the life cycle of a pillow is. So what I'm trying to say here is that if that founder came to me and said, I'm doing the pillow company, I would have said, this is, first of all, it's not in my thesis exactly, but even if I was curious and interested, I would not have paid much attention to it because I didn't know anything about the pillow. But maybe if I had paid, if I was interested in investing in that company, I would have definitely looked at the founders. What kind of, not just the industry experience, but what kind of unique industry insights and relationships that they bring to the table that makes them very unique in making this particular venture successful. So when you're looking at your founders, definitely, do the, checklist in your mind, what's important to you. What's important to me is like, are they coachable? Are they, do they send out investment, updates, for investors? Are they pretty open, transparent to answer questions, right? I'm not going to ask them questions like 2-3 hours every week or want to know everything about how they're running the company. But when I do want to know something about the company, or do they send me, this is a big one for me, schedule K1 on time, because I don't want to be chasing them, right? If I have like 50, 60 startups, I want to make sure that they have my interest in mind. But in addition to that, obviously, those are very, regular the things that every founder should do. But in addition to that, obviously, industry experience and also industry relationships and insights. I find that they are, they're very, very important. What are some of your thoughts on, have you come across a founder that fits this sentence? Anybody wants to share? Okay.
I've seen it
Yeah,
go
I can
really
jump in.
badly.
Oh, yeah.
I was just thinking of when that doesn't happen. And I was thinking about Quibi the other day and what went wrong. You have a founder with this great experience, but no insights. It's just sort of like, hey, I've done a ton of stuff in this industry. Let me try it this way, and didn't really get into that whole unique part of social content, and just kind of like try to put them together and hope that it would work out. It just, at least that was my interpretation of Quibi.
Yeah. No,
and it really didn't work out.
Yeah.
So, and also the other thing along with this, I would say, is also look at the advisors. Okay, founders may not have that, but do they have a really good set of advisors who are not just on the deck, but, and then I always ask if I can talk to, one of the advisors. And I usually do pick up the call, phone, phone call, and I just say, can you give me some information? How is your working relationship? How often do you meet? What kind of questions do come up in your conversations? What do you think is the biggest challenge for this founder or this company or this team? I ask those questions. Anyone else want to share anything?
I would just say that maybe one addition would be, and maybe it's just a kind of extension of what you're saying here. And I think that there are some good founders that maybe their unique industry insight isn't based on their professional experience, but they are, for other reasons, extremely passionate, and so are very, very personally motivated to learn as much as they can. So, for example, I was in a pitch the other day with, the founder just had an incredible background. The company is called My Resource, and she didn't have any direct experience in mental health or healthcare, but she had a sister who died of suicide. And so she had a lot of experience in trying to get help for her sister. And you could just tell she was incredibly passionate. So maybe that is a unique industry insight, in that, she was trying to help her sister, and for a variety of reasons, which I won't go into right now, but happy to share more information for anyone who's interested. Yeah. She was able to get the pain point on a very, very personal level and
Mhm.
was highly motivated to solve that problem for other people. So she didn't have the industry insights you would get from ever having worked in any of those industries. And so, but she did have a lot of passion in solving the problem in a particular industry. So that's the only
Yeah.
maybe addition
Okay.
I would add to that.
That's great, Angel. I'm so glad that you said that, because here I don't mean that you can only get industry insights by having industry experience, and that's the proof, right?
Yeah.
Unique industry insights does not equal to the industry experience that you have, worked in or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great addition. Thank you. All right, so that was my second big point, and the third one is traction. Only good if it sticks, right? So for early stage startups, the key question is not if there is a traction, but how long that traction will continue. Can the startup sustain a growing amount of traction for the long run to feed continued growth? And this question is being asked more and more now than ever before. So behaviors of people have changed this year because of COVID. We are obviously, a lot of e-commerce startups, and public companies are doing excellent. Like a lot of the Costco's and Walmart and Shopify and Amazon. I mean, we've all seen what has happened, right? It has accelerated the growth of e-commerce and delivery, Instacart and DoorDash, all that stuff, right? Because that's one of the way we learned how to cope with this. So our behavior has changed. So the companies that have experienced the most growth during this year, what are they going to do, or what are some of the challenges that they think they're going to face once COVID is done? Is the growth going to be continuing beyond that because some of the behaviors have changed of people? Or are you looking at an industry which flourished in this because it was needed, but as soon as people are, going about and doing what they need, what they want to do, are we going to see a drop? So we really want to look at and understand the traction and understand the sticky factor to it. So there is a company that is doing phenomenal right now because they are able to provide team experiences virtually, right? So then now we have a lot of amazing virtual tools besides Zoom, like Remo and a lot of other ones. They are popping up and they're doing really good. And then the industries, this particular company is taking advantage of them and building this, team experience business model out of it. And they've experienced a lot of growth. But my question to them was, how can you sustain this going forward? Like, how are you going to pair this with offline, experiences? Because you are now in the company as a vendor, right? Like they have a lot of business with Google's and Facebook and different departments in Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those big companies. But once this is over, how are you planning to continue with that traction by offering offline events? Have you thought about trying to plan that? Because hopefully we are 6 months away from being out and about and doing what we were doing before. So you want to ask questions like that, and traction is great, but how is it sticky? And again, going back to Christine, what she asked earlier is, how do we know this about the early stage companies, and how do we evaluate that? So I think, again, going back to my pre-revenue companies or first MVP companies, just do your own research, understand the behavior of the people, understand do you even think you can, do you buy into this? Like if the world was to become normal again tomorrow, would this product have the same demand or service have the same demand? So, traction is great, but only if it's sticky and if it can continue. A lot of times the startups will, put the numbers up there, but always ask the secondary question. How will you sustain this amazing growth that you experienced for the long run? Anyone?
Yeah, and Jags,
share?
can I just add something here too?
Please.
This is one of the spots that I always dig in with on founders. I've had a longer time without an investor hat on, prepping founders for pitches and all that stuff. And this is one of the money slides, right? So this is where they pull and paint and make sure they look attractive, and rightly so. But that's why you always have to go another level in and really ask, a really obvious one is something like, we have 500 active users, whatever it is. So what is your definition of active, as an example? Really digging, or we have 7 contracts signed. Okay, where'd you get those contracts? Were they because you had 7 warm contacts? Or was it because you did traditional outbound sales? So then you're looking at sustainability on that type of thing, or how long did it take you? So this again is like a really good place to kind of, just as Jags is saying, like really ask the questions, because founders know how important these are, and that is not suggesting that founders are lying at all.
No.
But this is where this is worthy of a lot of questions right here on traction.
Yeah, and so all I'm saying is, when you see attraction, the growth, just ask some of the underlying questions, or do your own due diligence, or both.
Yeah, I think this one is tricky too, because I think, sometimes you can have a lot of, it depends on what the traction is, right? Sometimes you can show a lot of growth. And
Mhm.
let's just, like, especially if it's a consumer facing business, you can show a lot of growth of, either customer acquisition or whatever. And that doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to transfer into the key metrics, which are important for creating a sustainable growth. Or it doesn't necessarily always validate, in early stage anyway, it doesn't always validate the business model per se, because you're coming in early on. And I usually don't look at pre-seed, I usually only look at seed, or A. And so it can be tough. Like, there are certain businesses where, and even as an entrepreneur,
Right.
I've never deliberately misled any investors, but I've definitely known in certain situations where I can show the best picture and show great traction, and yet I know I've got some serious vulnerabilities, and I try to be honest and upfront about what those are. But I think with lots of founders, when they're trying to close rounds, and not even just for the motivation of closing a round, but if they're inexperienced founders, if they've never started a company before, or whatever, I think a lot of times, and because it's, like I say, it's early stage, they might get overexcited about certain types of growth, which don't always translate into the kind of growth you need to make a return on investment.
Yeah, no, right on. But it's you just remember this: the traction is great, but it has to be sticky in the long run, right? There is going to be churn for sure, and there is going to be leaks and churn. That's part of life. But if your inbound is less than your leaks and churn, then you have a problem. So you have to continue to be ahead of the game. And in order to do that, different industries look at different things. All right. And the last one, creating the moat, right? So great, you have the attraction stickiness combined with sound execution may lead to strong customer loyalty. A strong, highly recognizable brand can also reinforce customer loyalty. Therefore, loyalty can be a competitive moat, and competitive moats are often defensible. So when people ask this question, what is your defensibility? A lot of the times, especially in the tech startups, they say, oh, we have patents, or we have IP rights. That's great. That's really good. But that's not, that doesn't mean they're 100%, they're more defensible. I like the loyalty, the brand, the customer success, part of the company. That is the most, defensible and more competitive advantage to other brands. So depending on what industry you're looking at, try to understand what is their moat, right? What do they consider their moat? And if they consider their moat to be just the intellectual property, that's good. But then press on and say, okay, what else would you say would gives you a competitive, sustainable advantage over your IP? Always ask the next question. That's what I'm trying to get to this for. That if you get the answer, then go just one layer deeper and say, okay, what else is there? Obviously we don't want to continue to dig deep into one area and drive the founder crazy. But what I'm saying is that if they give you an answer, ask, wonder, be curious, and always open your question with, that is wonderful. I'm so glad that you have that IP or intellectual property, but I'm curious to know what else do you think are your competitive, advantages? And then, they may say that's it. They may say something else. A lot of the times they give you the answer they think, the founders think as an investor you want to know. And they feel that the investors want to know, oh, we have IP, or we have, provisional patents, or we have patents. So dig a little bit, just one layer beyond that. And you may be surprised that you may find that, oh, this is exactly what I think is, your moat. And whether they agree or not, you have to feel right in your gut again to make that decision to invest or not invest. Any questions here? But the execution is super important, right? So you have the great founder team, you have the traction, the stickiness, but the execute operational excellence, right? When the company is growing from 5 to 50 to 500, that's like, what is it? Why would people want to work for you? Why would people want to buy from you? Why would people want to talk about you? Those are some of the questions that they, as founders, they should be, thinking about and maybe executing on some of them. Any stories here that you guys would like to share? Okay. But the most important, I think, is that you can do all the quantitative and qualitative analysis you want to do, right? But at the end of the day, do you believe that, do you have the conviction? Do you believe that this fits your thesis? This fits the path you want to take. This is going to help you build your legacy as an angel investor, whether it's clean tech like Christy, or food for Katie, whatever it is. If you lack conviction towards a company, no matter what the quantitative and qualitative data you have, I personally would walk away and say, you know what, I did something missing here. I know it's a big question, and I'm not even sure if you guys agree with me, but I believe that conviction is something that keeps me going in looking at different companies, because I love sometimes sometimes it just clicks and it's like, oh my gosh, I love this company. I know the data, the quantitative data or the qualitative data, everything I have, seen on the deck just doesn't make sense, but I'm so passionate about this cause, this goal, this product, that I think about it, then it's something that I would invest in.
I actually think that this is something that's fairly new. I agree, and I very much use this sort of a filter. Like if I don't believe in something, or if it isn't like a product or a service that I really want to see in the future, like I don't invest in it. Even if the numbers are good. Like I really don't want to put my money into things that are, well, for me, for instance, like hurting the climate, like even if it was like the best investment opportunity. And I think that's something that us as women have, it's like a more common among us to think about these things. And that's also the beauty of angel investing versus like venture. Like if you are managing like a venture fund or something, I feel like there's a lot of pressure obviously to make those returns, and you may not always be able to pass on a deal that you don't feel strongly about. But that's just one of the reasons why I love angel investing in particular.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, Christy. Thank you for sharing that. And I totally agree. I think we as women feel that way. And I think also women founders, if you look at the journey of women founders and initial, if you use the word social impact or whatever, you would not get funding, right? 10 years ago or 8 years ago, because people would say, oh, why don't you just start a nonprofit? But heck, it's not a nonprofit I'm starting. Just because I say social impact doesn't mean I don't care about profit, right? So that's the distinction that is, I think it's more clear now than it used to be. But women founders started that kind of journey in saying that, no, I believe in this and this is what I want to do. And yes, it's a social impact cause, but it's also profitable. And that's where the one pocket venture mentality comes in, that what I'm creating, I want to create something that's good for the environment. I don't want to create something, make money, and then think about doing good for the environment. And the investors are thinking in the same terms too, that if I'm going to do something, I want to do something that is going to advance humanity positively and not take us back or hurt anything. So thanks for sharing that. Okay. This is so just summarizing, we talked about market size or the compounded annual growth rate, founder times unique insights, traction stickiness, and strength of a competitive moat, right? So ask these questions when you're saying, I believe the market will continue to grow at this stage because of X, Y, and Z. What are your reasons for every company that you look at? So now let's go and look at 5 different companies. And I would love to make this an interactive session where we are asking this 4 questions and saying, okay, or maybe other parameters will pop out of it and say, okay, why don't we also think about this? So, but these are the 4 things that I would like us to keep in our mind and see if we can have some fun with looking at different companies to see if this is something that pops out immediately or, something we have to dig through it. Okay, so remember these 4 things, and I will stop sharing and then I'll start sharing my other deck. So these are the 5 startups we're going to look at: Bear Flag Robotics, Macrometa, Oxygen, Dover, and Mode. So Bear Flag Robotics is in the frontier tech. Macrometa is software, edge computing for cloud. Oxygen is fintech. Dover is security, cybersecurity, but in hardware. And Mode is consumer brand. Okay. So let me start sharing, and then I will share the other deck. If you guys have any questions while I'm trying to do this, please ask. Sure. Okay. Let's dig in. And I would like this to be more interactive session because we're now looking at pitch deck. So let's talk about some things, and we'll look at all the slides first, and then we'll ask ourselves a question about this four areas we talked about. So what
And
is,
Jags,
yes.
just to make sure we keep on time, we've got about 40 minutes
Okay.
until Gail pops on.
Okay.
So how much time? I'm happy to keep a little time for you, but how much time do you want per slide?
No,
per
I
deck,
think
I mean.
5:30 should be good. And again, if we can continue this conversation tomorrow, or we can take part of the next session, because I don't think next session is going to take, portfolio strategy. And I'm actually going to give you guys homework for the first time this week. So we want, and obviously I'm calling it a homework, but obviously it's, it's entirely up to you. But let's go through this at 5. When Gail comes at 5:30, we can start. And if you're not done, we can always continue tomorrow, or we can take a little bit of time next week from our portfolio session. Okay? Is that good, Kate?
Yep.
Okay. So this is Bear Flag Robotics. So what they're doing is they're making the tractors autonomous. So they have new tractors that are totally autonomous, but also they can retrofit the old tractors with similar technology, right? So this is something that I think it's awesome, because it gives, it just, it has more, what do you call, oh my God, I'm running, blanking out on the words, but more output from the farms, and collecting data about the soil, about the the water, the energy, whatever it goes into it, right? So 360 perception, onboard automation, mobile control interface, smart implements, right? I mean, it has all this extra accessories at the end that you can look at. What's the market size here? So again, this is a TAM. United States, 374 billion. Monterey County, which is right south of me, 4 billion. In California as a whole is 50 billion. So that's the market that they are going after. So here I would ask a question: is this the total addressable market, or is this the serviceable market? It's not clear to me. They have 80 million plus ARR in existing pipeline. So this is what they are working with, the customers that they are working with right now. Pricing for automation hardware. This is what, how they have, their revenue looks like. And this is their margin. And why is it important? So the land preparation is easier, and it can be done over, without taking a break. So like they can run at night, they can run in, certain weather conditions. Planting, that's also where the seeds are planted, with the data rather than just by planting by hands. Crop growth, harvesting, all these are the 4 areas where they are looking at these tractors to be really useful. And then, obviously circular, going back to it for every season. This is the team. So we looked at the market, so this is the team. So the team of, I'm going to give you guys some time to read this, but the team is really, really experienced in not only in the farming business, but also robotics, as well as the agricultural, the ownership of the farm. So they've worked on the farms for a long time. So they have a combination of data scientists, the farming, agricultural tech people, software, where they have teams and people from different companies like Facebook, Twitch, Qualcomm. Those are like so the Twitch is a gaming platform, obviously. Qualcomm Semiconductor, Facebook is community building, right? So I feel that this is something also is a good combination. Anything that pops out at you that you like about this particular team, based on what we talked about, obviously? I like the fact that they have variety of experience from different industry and not just agricultural industry, right? I also like the fact that the owner, the founder, has owned farms before, right? And understand how to work on the farm, but also have worked as a technologist in B2B, B2C companies.
I don't see any farmers though, like no one who has had agricultural experience.
Well, but the founder, the tall guy, he does. And he says 10 plus years in custom farming ownership and management.
What is, I guess I'm not sure what that means. So
I guess because I know a little bit about this company, I can say that what that means to me is he actually has understanding of not just owning a farm, but also running a farm. And what are some of the challenges that the farmers face when they're in the crop, the seeds, the four things that we talked about, right? The land prep, the planting the seeds, and the crops growing and the harvesting. So the challenges and the relationships in this area.
Yeah, to me that says like operations, which I think is super important in this.
Yeah, and also
situation.
relationships, right? So with other like John Deere and stuff. So anyways, go ahead, Kate. You probably know a little bit about this because you are a farm lady.
Farm lady. Yeah. So I mean, yes, this is strong, and I just like Jags. One of the things that I do love about this, especially because farming, if you let it be, can be a very lagging industry in terms of innovation. And so Jags had mentioned one of the great things about this team is that you've got the farming side of it, but they've really brought in a ton of other, I'm seeing Google X on here. Obviously, these are things you dig into, right? And not just brands on a page. But if you're staring at this, you got Boeing, Google X, like face software products, cloud architecture, that all is really good in this industry, probably particularly so in this industry, because you can really leapfrog if you do some of the right things on such a lagging innovation industry.
Yeah, I think like the fact that it is a lagging innovation industry, and I've listened in on the food and ag tech seminars, and I've been like dying on the inside, is that they know how to talk to these people and how to potentially like introduce something new, because it's very different when we're talking about this like cutting edge technology companies. Like they're ready to do whatever. It's like super frontier tech, like the weirder the better almost. But like these are very traditional industries, and it's a whole different ball game to like get something to market in these industries. What really stood out for me as well is that the founder has previous experience founding and running companies, even exited. Like there's like post seed stage, so I just don't know like how far along they got. But I think it's always encouraging when they do have some experience from the past, because it gives me confidence on the execution side.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that they wouldn't put that unless it was very successful, or somewhat successful, that they can bring to this company. But that's just my observation, but not necessarily true. I also like that there is a Trucks VC. I looked them up and I was like, wow, that's fantastic that there is a VC for with their focused onto the hardware and big robotics.
I have to say that there's a ton of opportunity in this space, and it is one of the kind of like overlooked ones because it's not very sexy. It's really hard to make it make the change happen.
Yeah.
But there's so much opportunity, and there's fewer eyeballs on these deals. So I think for anyone who is interested, I would recommend just looking into it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's, sorry. So that was the first team. So let me ask you guys, would you invest? I mean, obviously we don't have all the information. We just have 8 slides here, right? But would this, if it fit your thesis, this should be the next step that you take is like, okay, this, I'm interested in this space. I think whatever I saw right now in the 8 slides, I'm interested in being a little bit more curious. So that's the first, first filter for me is to look at the market size, the traction, because I think we saw some right here, some traction in existing pipeline. We saw the team, we saw the market size, and the moat is that they are much ahead of in this industry. They're probably one of the pioneers. All right. Any other questions on this company before we jump to the next one?
I'd look further into it.
Sorry?
I just said I would look further into it.
Thanks. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? I just want to make sure that I'm not.
Well, I think you convinced me that they have some farming experience. I think where I was going with my question is it feels like with 10 years of experience that there's a founder who knows that space, but do others implicitly understand it? And you know what? I think after a few questions with the founding team, I could probably suss that out. But I do think that one thing that I'm always a little wary of are people that go into spaces that seem like they need help or that seem interesting because there's not a lot of activity or interest, but they really don't have, I guess, the insight.
Yeah.
And that's something I would probably probe at with the team.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I used to have a smart mobility accelerator that I founded and ran. And so I really like this one because so many of these companies are trying to do this in far more complicated and risky areas, which is part of the reason Uber has outsourced it, right? They've unloaded it for not entirely, but they've outsourced it because it's so much more difficult to do in the consumer space. And it makes much more sense, less risky to do it in this particular sector. So I think it looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jags, can I?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I mean, I for the same reasons I think that have been articulated, and just to add some, I think this would be really interesting because I think the opportunity for innovation here with legs into climate change,
Mm-hmm.
when you've got people like Twitch, I think the ability to combine things in a space that has legs in a lot of other areas. I think it would also be pretty interesting to bring this down to an individual farming level.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see. I mean, this is the big agricultural farms, and they can pay for this kind of innovation and research. But I think it would be fun in this space for innovation purposes to bring it down to that individual level eventually. I think there's just a lot of fun innovation in here that this would definitely be of interest to me. That also might be because my father grew up on a dairy farm, so
Yeah.
I do like the agriculture stuff.
Yeah. So I have to say, none of these companies are raising right now. They've all closed their round, but I wanted to bring them to you as something that and I have only invested in one of this company. And you can tell me at the end which one you think I invested in. Let's see if you guys can figure that out. I wanted to invest in 2, but I invested in one of them. So this is this I did not invest in. But anyways, this is one of the companies. All right, let's go to the next company, Macrometa. So what is Macrometa? This is a software SaaS company. So this is the cloud, it's in cloud computing space. And what is happening is a lot of the times, and you know what, let me go back to, go to this thing here. Okay, here. So cloud native architectures are really struggling with the data and the low latency. So what that means is the latency is, and you guys can chime in if you have more, knowledge about this, is from the minute the person, presses on a website or a link or whatever it is, how quickly the data comes back. And they say, and how not only quickly the data comes back, but how often the data is updated in real time. And because of the cloud, the native architecture, there is a problem with getting the most up-to-date data and how fast the response comes back. So what they are doing, and this is actually at an enterprise level, it is not at a B2C level at all. So if you have a cloud in your home, what do you call the I have a box. I have my own cloud in the house. I forget the name of the company, but anyways, it won't work. Obviously, for me, but it would be with Amazon's and Google's and Microsoft, all the cloud services, right? AWS, Azure, etc. So what they're saying is that there are 1 in 26 users complain about poor performance, but the rest just leave. And that's the leave part is what they're trying to solve, because, as you can see from the data that they provided, that every 100 milliseconds of latency costs them 1% in sales. So Amazon is really, really hurting at this because obviously it is making a big difference in their sale. And then there is more information back at the broader B2C level. Current estimates from Akamai show that a 1 second delay in page response can result in a 7% reduction in conversions. So when we are talking about customer conversions and making sure that the e-commerce, because it seems like e-commerce is ramping up, even not only in COVID times, but hopefully the behaviors that we've changed is going to continue. So what does that mean, right? So the Macrometa is solving this problem for the B2B, for the Amazons of the world, Amazon's, Google's, Microsoft. I think now, I don't know, Salesforce have their own, or Oracle has their own cloud system too. So this is their song. So it's serviceable, obtainable market. So right now it's about, so how do I explain this chart? Let me see. So the opportunity as it exists right now, and this is where you're looking at the 40% CAGR, right? So we talked about the market size and comparing it with CAGR. So I am right now not paying attention to, from this slide, more at the market size, but I'm more paying attention to the growth. So this is, the cloud computing obviously is more or less a mature market right now, the way it is, but there's so many nuances that there are, people are trying to faster the better, more accessible, more accurate, all that is very, very important, especially when you look at the financial transactions. You look at, the sales, like for Amazon or eBay, or, all that is important. So, sorry? Somebody said anything?
Nope, I think it was just background noise, Dex. You're good.
Okay. So here I looked at the 40% CAGR, and that got me excited. So they're saying that by 2025, their solution, they are going to actually be growing. Today, they are looking at the sum of 2.4 billion. By 2025, that market is going to grow to 15 billion. Now that is huge. That is huge. And these are the what do you call it? The markets, like blogs and static media sites, multiplayer gaming, cybersecurity, SaaS. All those markets are going to demand more and more, the CDN low latency kind of performance. So this is what got me excited about this company, is that 40% CAGR. So what they do is Macrometa serves real-time data globally from 175 worldwide locations. I don't exactly know how their technology works, but what I do know is these numbers, they're 10 millisecond because of Macrometa's the algorithms. They are the latency is about 10 millisecond versus 40, 50, or up to a minute. So they are actually, like you said, 25x to 200x faster than public cloud for data intensive applications. So what they do is they are actually sitting between your access and right before they enter the public cloud. So they are actually their customers are the Amazons and Google and Microsoft Azure. So as soon as we as consumer or anyone, companies get into the Amazon cloud, the Macrometa algorithm makes it much faster. It cuts down by 25 to 200x. So the question that we asked is, why wouldn't why can't you can do this yourself? Why wouldn't be able to, why not? So this is the slide that they said that would, if you want to do this yourself, sure, you can do it. You can spend 2 years, millions of dollars, and you can, in order to do that, this is what you need to, actually do. Or you can write 8 lines of code on Macrometa, and it'll actually take care of, that low latency rate. There you go. Again, this is also projected, right? So then they also gave the pessimistic, conservative, realistic, optimistic, and obviously out of the box kind of sums, because this is what they are going after. So if you look at the realistic, 4.5% of $4 billion, it's about 108 million. Now you see this is the magic number. When the VCs see this $100 million, that's when they say, okay, if they are $100 million right now at Series A, then by Series B, Series C, this is going to grow, into pretty healthy margin if you look at the 40% CAGR, right, after 2025, if that growth continues. Anyway, this was the slide. These are the slides for Macrometa. I forgot to input the slide for the founders, but the founder slide, let me see if I can pull that up pretty quick while you guys are looking at this, if I can. If not, there are 2 founders that have worked in this industry for at least 25 years. And one of them, Durga, who is actually an industry well-known person on the cloud architecture, and Venkat, who is the other founder, he has worked in at Microsoft and Amazon within their cloud architecture groups, if I can remember correctly. So they're pretty strong founders with strong industry insights. So what are your thoughts about this company? Yes. So here, obviously we understand, we may not understand the problem technically, but we understand the impact of a problem in if big companies like Amazon is experiencing 100 millisecond of delay can cost them 1% in sales. And how many times have we experienced that if the website takes too long or whatever, we don't go and complain about the poor performance, but we actually just leave and find something, some other product similar or whatever. It happened to me last week. I'm moving to a new house next week, and I was ordering some furniture, and I wanted to get this blue velvet, chairs and the bar stools, and it was the chairs were in my cart, but the bar stools just would not. I was not able to get that loaded. So I kind of said, okay, well, I'm not going to buy it now. Like I changed my mind completely and said, I'll do it when I go, when I'm settled or whatever. But if that had loaded, I was ready to put my credit card and say, okay, I want those stools because they were just so beautiful. So, but I didn't go back and complain. So in a way, I do understand this problem that, I'm just going to go and do something else, or, it's not important enough for me to complain, but it does affect the bottom line for many, many companies. This is probably the most boring and dry conversation for you guys. I'm sorry.
I think this is super interesting. For me, I totally get the problem.
Okay.
But I want to understand the solution better. And that I don't know the tech. I don't understand the tech. I understand in concept what it is, but I wouldn't, me personally, this would not be in my thesis because I want to be able to understand and explain it, and I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's important, right? Because it has to match your thesis. And I am not doing a good job also, Katie, explaining you the problem.
Oh, no, I totally get the problem. It's not you. It's like, I get that it's a problem. I get somebody else can fix it, but this isn't my mission.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine is saying, looks like a good acquisition target for existing software company. Yeah. In my opinion, this is a 3 to 5 year play. I don't think it is going to grow to. So this will be like one of those, like Catherine said, tech acquisition that is, is going to grow to a pretty healthy return, hopefully. And then, but that's it. This is not something that I can see going an IPO or, going to a point where everybody needs it, right? So. Who knows? Hopefully
I would be curious, but I came from AWS, and I'd be curious. I mean, I'd probably want to talk to CIOs that I know or CTOs just to understand, like, how do they see the problem? But also, I have to think that there's so many companies that are sort of that intermediary.
Yeah.
There's like a whole ecosystem of companies that play off of GCP and AWS, and I'd wonder where they sat or where they say they sit.
Yeah, and that's where the understanding the founder comes in very handy, right? Because Durga has, his name is pretty well known in the world of cloud architecture, gurus, whatever. So, so he definitely not only has industry insights, but also has industry connections. So yeah. But I just wanted to also show this particular slide is also, this particular company, because, it's 40% CAGR. It's just crazy. 2.4 billion today, which is 20, and 5 years it'll be like $15 billion. Just incredible. And I can see all these areas being affected by low latencies and all that stuff. Now we have IoT coming into the picture big time, right? There's so many smart homes. So if the smart homes are not communicating, if I can turn on my oven from my office, which is 50 miles away, which I mean, I shouldn't do that anyways, but I'm saying that I have an ability to do that through my smartphone. So I want to not have much delay, right? I mean, there's just my oven, but there's also a lot of other technology that we take for granted. Like, I wonder how the all this, things that are happening in NASA or SpaceX, or, I don't know. It just like cybersecurity, right? I mean, just so much going on that we're putting everything in the cloud. And if everything is going in the cloud, who is, this problem is going to get pretty noticeable, and or you can just keep adding cloud storage. Anyways, so this is one of the company. We are at 523 right now. Let's go through one more. So this company is called Oxygen. Oxygen, banking and credit for the extraordinary. So we all know that there are so many freelancers earning about $1.4 trillion annually. So are they saying that 16 million freelancers are earning 1.4 trillion? So is that the TAM? No, I would say that's not a TAM, that's PAM, potential market, right? They want to take part of this $1.4 trillion. So what they're doing is they are making sure that the freelancers can do things that they need to do pretty easy, like accounting, legal, the banking, the credit. And these are not the freelancers who are, they are pretty sophisticated freelancer who are working, pretty high paying jobs. So their thesis is that more than 50% of the workforce is going to be people who freelance by 2027. 40% of them are going to be millennials, and less than 20% would rather have a traditional job, meaning that is actually on its way out. So how can we support this entire community of freelancers where they are not denied credit because they are not on W-2, right? How do we change that entire way of lending and banking? So they are the full service financial platform, deposit, transaction, credit, business banking, and more. Again, amazing founders. I don't know if I have the founder slide here, but features that freelancers need: the invoicing, LLC creation, business management, international transfers, useful cashback, useful cashback. These are some of the features that every freelancer needs, right? This is what they're claiming that they're doing, that the real bank would do, but better, right? AI enhanced credit risk scoring. All the stuff that the direct relationship and integration with 78 partners and vendor, and they don't revenue share. They take mostly no revenue share, we keep it all. So these partners that they're working with, I would like to understand, why do they not want to do revenue share? What is it that they are giving them in order to continue this relationship with them? Because if I'm a freelancer and if I have an relationship with one of the partner that are also that I'm doing business with through Oxygen, if they decide that, oh, no revenue share, I'm not going to continue working with Oxygen, I don't want that. I don't want something that I'm using through Oxygen fade away because Oxygen decided that they are not going to have a revenue share. So I would like to know what's in it for the partners and vendors to continue to work with Oxygen. And these are some of the things that they are doing in each of this space, the credit cards, deposits, lending, I'm not, I don't know much about the fintech side of, I've looked at enough deals, but I don't know much about how the FX trades in the remittance market, work. But this is what they're saying. This is what the revenue generation, looks like. And this is one of the other things we talked about, right? You are growing during COVID. Are you going to continue to grow after COVID, right? What is your stickiness factor, right? So these are some of the questions that I would like to ask. Yes, March, April, May, you grew quite a lot, but now how would your business model or revenue model change once the world goes back to normal? And it is going to go back to normal sooner or later, right? And we all know that. It's just when is a big question mark. So when the world goes back to normal, how would you see this impacting your business? And they should have a pretty good answer as far as, because they need to be thinking about this, the founders. This is what they do, 32 CAC. So this is where the customer acquisition cost, right? They're comparing that with the 150, but then we want to know, okay, you acquired a customer, but how long does your customer stay with you, right? So how are you acquiring customers through, all this, targeted campaign for all these different kind of freelancers? What are the B2B2C partners, right? These are some of the partners that they worked with. And they're saying that organic signups, 50% of the signups are through organic word of mouth, maybe, et cetera, et cetera. But they are coming up with a CAC $32 per, CAC. So now my question here would be, if that is your CAC, how often, how long do you, does a customer stay with you? So what's your LTV? So according to them, what business banking is significantly higher LTV with an even higher barrier to entry. I don't know if I didn't buy this, but I'm not sure if that is true, because there are a lot of also third-party banking solution like Kabbage. Kabbage is one, right? They do a lot of this stuff. How do they compare with Kabbage?
Or Brex.
Sorry?
Or Brex.
Yeah, or Brex. Yeah. And let's finish this one and then we'll stop. And this is the timeline. I like to receive the timeline from the founders, some sort of timeline, not just the fundraising timeline, but also what are they planning to, what did the future look like for their industry, their product, et cetera, et cetera. So,
hey, Jags.
Yeah.
When you ask for a timeline, how long do you like to see?
It depends. If you're a pre-seed, then at least 18 months, 12 to 18 months. If you're a seed, 24 to 36 months, and Series A, assuming you're going to do Series B in about 2.5 to 3 years until then. Because by Series A, you should have a pretty good idea about when you are going to do Series B and what would it take for you to, raise your Series B as far as the milestones go. So I know we are at the time, but I'd like to just spend 2 more minutes, and we have 2 more companies, but then we can go over that tomorrow. What are your thoughts on this quickly? And then we'll jump into a conversation with Gail.
There's definitely a huge need, but it's also highly competitive in terms of other players in the market. I think that they've secured some great partners, great customers, but I would want to know a bit more about those. Are those contracts that can be, terminated quickly and easily? Like, what are the nature of those customer and partnerships, the contracts? But, it looks good. I definitely don't consider myself a fintech expert, although I've done some stuff in that space. But yeah, I think it's highly competitive. It looks like they have good traction. They're definitely solving a big pain point. It looks like they're offering maybe a more comprehensive product or service offering than some of their direct competitors. So it, you know, it looks strong.
Yeah. So I don't have much experience in fintech company either. What attracted me to this company is because this is something that I relate to, right? As a freelancer, as a consultant, I relate to this problem. But I don't know if my regular bank is that much painful for me to change it completely, because I'm still like in between. Like I like to go to a bank sometime just to take care of things right away versus doing everything online. And my current bank, Chase, gives me both options. But it's not easy for sure. I mean, this is very easy. I have downloaded the app. I have opened an account here, but I don't do my business, with it. So I think Alice asked a question. I want to know what's the relationship with the partners. Like Angel said, what kind of partnership with those partners? So that's a great question to ask them, and also ask them that question that if you don't do revenue share, how can you make sure that those relationships will continue as your community starts to use those partners? It is in their best interest to make sure that those relationships continue, correct? So
yeah, I also have experienced that, like some founders told me that, okay, they have relationship because they are like friends or whatever, that, that kind of, but that's like a short-term relationship. Maybe they signed a short-term contract, and then like after you invested, maybe it's gone, you don't know where is it anymore. So that's the thing I will concern. And another thing I want to add on is like in the previous slide, they were talking about the freelance, their target is like artists, real estate, something like that. And in their timeline, they did not mention any like bigger goal that they wanted to partner with a bigger company or big, because usually, I mean, from my it's like seeing all the decks, like ambitious startup, they always wanted to partner with a bigger company. For example, like beauty, they want to partner with Sephora or Macy. They wanted to be in those, things. And for real estate, why not Century 21 or other real estate companies, or like Etsy, those type of thing. Their partner, I feel like it's not really, I mean, they are some of them are recognized, but like not like a big that people just at the spot recognize it. So not sure what their plan and strategy is. Yeah.
Also Kabbage, Kabbage did a great thing by combining them, partnering with the federal government for all the PPP loans, right? So there are obviously, Kabbage is much ahead of them, but also that way they're getting so many people without actually, really paying for the campaigns. Or the Kabbage had the biggest advantage in the PPP world because Chase and Wells Fargo and all those banks, they only took the people if the people previously had a relationship with them and had a business account prior to 2017. And the reason I know that is because I also work with SBA here as a coach for startups. And some of the companies were applying that, and SBA were sending us all the detail that this is what you need to tell the people that you're working with. So in the Kabbage said, you can open an account today and apply for a PPP loan. We don't really care if you have a previous relationship. So I think things like that also is, really important to build relationships, long-term relationships. Anyways, let's stop. Thank you, guys. Kate, is Gail here?
She is. Yep.
Hello.
Awesome.
Gail.
Hi, Gail.
Hey, nice to see you all.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
Yeah, and we tried connecting with each other, but with the crazy schedule, we weren't able to. So very nice meeting you in person, Gail. Welcome. And we have this amazing group of women investors. And we're just, today's session was about, understanding the framework for different industry, right? Some of us, want to invest in software, fintech, CPG, and the things that we talked about mainly fall into, 4 categories that we always, no matter what industry you're looking at, you look at is the, market size, traction, founder, and, what is your defensibility, right? What's your sustainable competitive advantage? So we would love to pick your brain on that. But before that, would you mind telling us a little bit about you and, and then we can jump right into question, and everyone feel free to ask questions to Gail as well.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I love seeing a group of women who are doing angel investing. So that's fabulous. In 2012, I started an angel investment network. And today we've got about 270 investors. We invest about $10 million a year through that entity into pre-seed and seed stage startups. We also have a VC fund that we launched in 2018 that's 16 million in Fund 1, also focused on pre-seed and seed. And then I personally have done probably 8 deals total in the last 5 years or so. So don't have a ton of personal capital to be investing, but do try to do a few a year to build my own angel portfolio.
Yeah, what's the angel group called?
It's called Vitalize Venture Group.
Oh, Vitalize Venture Group. Okay. And is the fund that you started is also just an extension of Vitalize?
The fund is part of the same organization, but they're 2 separate entities. The fund is a traditional LP, and then our angel deals are done via SPVs or single purpose LLCs.
I see. So there are 2 entities, but under one organization. Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you. And what are some of the industries that you...
Do you focus on any particular industry, or is it like a more of a generalist angel network and fund?
Yes, the fund has always been B2B software, and our focus areas are future of work, learning, retail, and finance. And the angel network historically has looked at B2B software mostly, but we've also done consumer technology deals, consumer products and medical devices and diagnostics. And we are making a switch moving forward. We're just going to be software, but our portfolio has about 20% non-software in it.
Nice. Thank you for that quick overview. So can you tell us a little bit about, when you are looking at different industries and evaluating if they should, whether you should do a syndicate through your angel group or be part of the fund, are there some things that you're like, absolutely, we must always look at XYZ, but the others are optional? Or are there any big differences between industries that you can share with us?
Sure. From a high level, when we speak with founders who are raising, we're looking for the things that Jagruti's already mentioned, big and growing markets that are at least $1 billion, if not bigger. We look for some initial product market fit. So sometimes that's in the form of revenues, sometimes it's purchase orders, sometimes it's us talking to customers of the company's pre-revenue to understand what the demand will be.
Mm-hmm.
And the next pieces are all about the founding team. Do they have a big vision? Do we believe that they can execute on that vision? And at this stage, there's not a lot of data where you will be looking where we look. And it's all about assessing that team's ability to have a strong outcome. And oftentimes it's not the same outcome that they come in thinking that they're going to do, because there will be adjustments to their model over time. So we have to make sure that team is really strong.
Yeah. So when you said the market size, do you also look at the CAGR? Because we were talking about an issue an example today in the mature market. If you look at a market size at a year 0, right? Like when you're investing, it might be a big market size, but in a growth market, that market size is much lower, but then the CAGR kicks in, and over a period of 7 to 10 years, that actually gives you a better growth in a growth market versus a mature market, and looking at that. So if you were looking at that particular scenario, 2 startups, one in mature market, one in growth market, would you evaluate them the same way based on the market size, or how would you, what are your thoughts on that?
I would think about it in the sense of what is the return profile. So each person really has to define their own angel investment thesis. I have some friends who really prefer kind of lower downside risk, but obviously that limits the outcome that you can have on the upside. But they like businesses that are a little bit further along, a little safer. I personally like to see a 30x plus return profile. So the metrics that tend to impact that are, what's the valuation today? How much more capital will they have to raise in the future? What percentage would I own at an outcome time when an acquisition happens or other event? And what would that exit value be? And you can do the math to see what today's cash could become and what the cash on cash return is. So I think that's baked in terms of, if it is a growing market, then obviously your return profile is going to reflect that, because the exit value in a growing market like that, it's oftentimes going to have a higher multiple on exit. So it is part of it, but I think about it a little bit differently, because they're in the seed and pre-seed stages. There's so many variables that impact that return profile. And I have to make sure that because so many are going to go to zero of my investments, that at least some will be the 30x plus.
Right. So now talking about pre-seed and seed, right? And you said there are so many variables. What are, like, if you were to name one or two variables that you should always think of in pre-seed and seed stage versus one or two variable, it's like they become more important in later stage, what would they be?
So if we first talk about software, when companies come to us, the last time I looked at the data, about 20 to 30% of the deals that we see are pre-revenue, and then the rest are post-revenue. So if we just look at the ones that have already started to generate revenue, we're looking to see, what percentage of their revenue is recurring, what's the absolute amount of recurring revenue that they have on a monthly basis, and then most importantly is, what is that month over month growth percentage?
Right.
And when you look at benchmarks for this, it really varies. What I look for is at least consistent 10 to 15% month over month, but really the companies that are starting to figure out product market fit, it should be like a plus 30% month over month, because when you think about the next round, a Series A investor is going to expect that the revenue on an annual basis is at least 2 to 3xing where it was from the year before. And that means that as I look at a company, I have to make sure it's already starting to grow, or it's going to have a really hard time getting there. And obviously, if it's pre-revenue, I'm taking much more of a bet on market, the product itself, the team, and the price should be lower, and that helps that return profile. So it's just a little bit of a different way to view it. In the consumer technology space, we're looking for how many daily active users do you have? How many monthly active users do you have? When you compare that, do you have a high percentage of your daily active users versus your monthlies? Because that means people are using it frequently and the stickiness factor is there. You also want to understand monetization of consumer applications and technologies to see if the users are actually already paying, or is that something that's happening in the future? So it needs to be something that has a lot of user growth. And when you look at how they're acquiring users, are they going to be able to monetize that? And oftentimes you don't have a ton of data at the early stage. So you're trying to take a bet on, based on what you're seeing with, typically it's just user growth and not a lot of monetization. Do you think that they're going to be able to figure that out based on early stage? For consumer products, I'm looking for, and this is really tough for consumer product companies or digitally native brands. You have to have more traction, unfortunately, than a software company, because your multiples on exit are lower. So if you think about back to that, what's your cash on cash return potential? You have to show more traction even at the very early stages before VC or an institution, or sometimes even angels will come in. Which makes it tough for those founders. But for those that do have some data, I'm looking for, do you have strong repeat rates? So I hope to see at least 25% repeat rates. And then you want to see how, what is your cost of acquisition, your CAC?
Mhm.
and how fast is it being paid back? So if it's a low price product, like a CPG, it might take 6 to 9 months to pay back that initial customer acquisition cost. If it's like a piece of clothing that's several $100s, you should pay back your cost of acquisition with the first purchase.
Right.
So you really want to understand that dynamic to make sure that your marketing costs are actually going to get you to profitability on a unit level and not too long of a time. And then we also look at medical devices and diagnostics. So oftentimes at the early stage, these companies are pre-revenue. And what our group looks for is, are they at the FDA approval stage or are they past it? And you can still get valuations in the medical device world that are between 6 and 12 or 15 pre, when they're already hitting the FDA approval stage, which is really important.
Oh, pre-approval, you're saying 6 to 12K, 12X.
No, once it hits the approval stage.
Once it hits the approval
Yeah,
stage.
yeah, correct. And on the medical device and diagnostic and pharma side, I'm really looking to see, is the technology radically different where the company could be purchased for the technology, or is it kind of a better than an existing product, which would require commercialization, and that's a much longer path. And you're going to have to see different metrics, different team strengths based on which type of opportunity you're looking at. Because as an angel, I always have to think about, what is my likely exit? When does it happen and how much is it? So that I can do the math to always go back to that return potential.
Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the tools you use to do all this?
It's a good question. I guess, so I can share quickly our diligence process. We ask the founder right off the bat for, if they don't have a data room, the things we would want to see are historical financials that you have. So your most recent balance sheet, and then your P&L, year to date, or your last one. And if you have several years of history, go ahead and give us your annuals from your inception. And then your financial projections. And a lot of founders at the early stage bristle at this. They sometimes don't have them. They don't want to do them. I counsel founders that it's really a planning tool, and it helps me see how you think. How big does this get? What are the drivers and assumptions? How many people do you need to support the growth? If you have products, what goes into your materials, and how are you thinking about inventory management, all those kinds of things. So you really do want to see some kind of financial projections. They might not be great, but it lets you see how this founder is actually going to do it. It's the most important thing, I think, is the financial projections. We ask for some references, ideally a few customers. We'll talk to other investors, advisors. We talk to all the key team members. Oftentimes we try to do that with them as a group, so we see how they interact. So I've passed on some deals where the teams don't respect each other or don't get along well. And that's been a learning for me over time, is to really key in on not just the founder, but who are your key people on the team.
Them too. Yeah.
And then we do our own diligence. We always look at Google. Is there anything adverse that shows up on the team? You'd be surprised how often this happens.
LinkedIn.
Yep, we check all of that. We do research on the competitors. We look at the product for sure. You want to make sure it's a good product. If the UI UX is bad, just pass on it, because that's table stakes at this point. If it's hard to understand, clunky, it's not going to be a good deal. And we're sizing the market, and we're doing that return profile analysis. We always will project what we think the return will be, and if it's too low, then we'll pass on the deal.
Yeah. No, this was fantastic. This is like your process understanding. This was really, really good. I want to open it up to anybody else who have any questions. I'm also looking at chat. I mean, I can continue to ask questions if nobody else has any questions.
I have one.
Sure.
Hi, Gail.
Hi.
Thanks so much for all of this. It's great. I'm just curious, because I do agree with you on the UI UX, but I also know that a lot of founders struggle in that first iteration and seed stage. And so even as a founder myself, I use my Series A to help me make a better product. So does that ever come into play, or do you ever take that into account for the Series A?
Um, at this point, so if I think about all the companies that I see over the last 8 years that I've been doing this, the products have gotten so much better that today where we sit, it's so competitive, and it's the cost to start a company has come down so much that having a really strong product out of the gate is unfortunately where we're at. I actually talked to a founder today who's outsourcing development to Turkey. And I made the comment, when I first started, I saw a lot of that outsourcing, and that often was a really bad idea because you wanted it handled internally. But I'm starting to see it more. And so to your question, I'm curious what that means for investors as we think about UI, UX, and does that change? So I think this is one of the things that, depending on trends in VC and what investors are expecting and how founders are building their businesses, it could change. But today, right now, I think that still the product really has, even at pre-seed, it's got to be looking pretty good.
Or at least have a plan, or at least come out and say, okay, I understand that this can be improved, right? It's the ones that are stuck on this, like, no, that's fine. And there is no plan or even budget allocated to improve something. Especially with UI UX, and that's where the red flag happens. The red flags for me is not if they have a bad UI UX, but do they acknowledge that it needs to be improved, and do they have a bad budget allocated, and do they have a person or a team who is looking into at least creating wireframes, or something like that.
I've got a question. So what made you decide to start the syndicate, and also what prompted you to start the fund, and what did you do to kind of, if your angel investing is fairly limited to this stage, or at least this year, what were the steps that you took, and what were the kind of, motivations in both? And is it Irish Angels? Is that the name of the syndicate?
It was. We're like right now in the middle of changing it all to be Vitalize, and then we happen to have a fund and a network within there. There's just too much market confusion with the name Irish Angels. I get questions, do you invest in Ireland? No.
Yeah. Are you partners with Commune, the new angel network in Detroit?
Yes.
Yeah. And what does that partnership entail?
Well, we will be sharing deal flow. They're just getting off the ground. One of our, I guess, he's going to be our chair next year, is one of the founders. So I actually spoke to their group yesterday. It's a really fabulous group.
Fantastic. Wow. Congrats.
Yeah. So to your question, this was not my idea. I randomly met some folks who were like, hey, we wanted to start this angel group affiliated with Notre Dame. We can't help you. We can't pay you. Are you interested? And I had 3 months of loan money left after business school. And so I said, okay, I have 3 months and let's figure it out if we can get 40 people. So we got it off the ground that way. And it's really morphed. We don't do Notre Dame deals anymore. We're changing the name. Like, we've realized that there's an opportunity in this space with our combined fund network model. It's really opened my eyes to the fact that founders love having that dual approach, because some are best suited for the fund, some actually are best suited for the network, and it provides oftentimes the ability to get funding from both of the entities. And we are, as I mentioned, getting more specific around business-to-business software in those 4 key areas. We're also going to start focusing, just talking out loud about our diversity approach, because about half of our companies that we invest in have an underrepresented founder. And one of the things that I want to work on personally next, as I do this rebrand, is find a way such that 50% plus of our angel investors are underrepresented. And I think that those 2 things together will make the group much stronger. We won't have a complete focus on underrepresentation, but it's going to be a big part of what we do.
That's awesome. Can I ask a question as far as so if you have a founder that you're interested in, but your angel network is also interested in that deal, do you how do you deal share between the 2, and who gets the priority if the allocation is tight?
That's $1 million question. So the way we set it up is if Jagruti is raising, I would, you know, and moving forward, it's the same exact criteria across both.
Okay.
So you would pick, do you want to work with the fund or the angel network? And the fund has, you know, a little bit of a different return profile. So that 30x, that's the fund. The angel network, it's 10x, because like I mentioned, some angels have different return profiles, and I want to honor that. And so oftentimes we'll do due diligence for a founder that picks the fund, and it's like, hey, I love what you're doing, but I'm only getting 15 to 20. Do you want to talk to our network? And where they wouldn't have talked to the network initially, but now that they met our team, some of our angels have helped them. They're like, yes, we like your community. We want to work with the angel network.
Mhm.
So that's oftentimes what happens. And I'm trying to reset expectations and perceptions of angel networks, which historically have taken, you know, 6 to 9 months to do due diligence and stuff. Like, how do we move as fast as a fund? And that's where we're headed. So that, I mean, if I were raising money, I'd want to raise for my angel group, because my angel group helps the companies like a ton. And I have to fix the market thinking on that.
Yeah, but doesn't your LP get upset if you, let's say you have this company that falls into 10x or 30x, and if they prefer to work with the angel groups and not come to the fund, wouldn't your LPs like, what the heck? Why, why am I paying you 2% management fee? No, I'm just,
Yeah.
being a little.
They have to sign that there are not any conflicts, so they know that there's the dual model. And I truly believe that having the dual model provides lift, because the network gets into stuff because of the fund, and the fund gets a lot of value because our angels are really active and engaged. So I have to sell that vision, and I now have data that shows that the dual model does provide a lot of values in different ways. And so all the LPs and angels that are part of the group really have to buy into that.
Yeah.
Or to your point, then there's problems.
Yeah. Would you mind sharing that data? I'm interested in looking at this dual model. If you have that data that's publicly available, otherwise it's fine.
I'm happy to walk through. We don't have anything to publish,
Okay.
but I would say 20% of our companies get funding from both.
Okay.
And so it's helpful. I've actually talked to some other GPs that are thinking about similar models where founders at the pre-seed, they're raising, and then oftentimes within 6 to 12 months, they're out again.
Mhm.
If we get to know them, and let's say they got an angel network check, then the fund may lead their next deal.
Mhm.
And, we can pull other investors in, and it's a really fast fundraise process. So we're seeing that happen. Follow-on financing is great, because like we invested in a company called Inclu in June of 2019. And we did, we committed quickly 500,000 out of the fund, and we're like, do you want to come pitch to our angel group? He flew out, he pitched to our angel group. He got another $750,000. And then our fund ended up leading his next round. The angel group came in again, and obviously some other investors came in, but it ended up being quite a lot of firepower for that founder. And so he's able to focus more on building. So we have a lot of stories like that because of that model.
No, that's great. And I could talk to you forever, but I want to make sure that I'm mindful of other people here. So anyone else?
Gail, what's your time? Do you have to hop off?
No, I'm good. I'm all done with my calls for today.
Great. Thank you. And if anybody else does need to leave, as always, pop off. Christy did actually have a question a bit ago that I think is relevant to this conversation, not about the angel group vis-a-vis the fund, but back to sort of frameworks. And her question was, I got to find it here in the chat. Her question was, at some point, essentially, how do you evaluate potential exits touted by founders? And I think in the context of this conversation too, when you're looking at several different industries, sectors, models, that type of thing, what are some of your ways that you line that up?
Let's use an example. Whoever asked the question, do you have an industry that you care most about?
I'm pretty industry agnostic, but it's more about who the founders are. I'm really compelled by women founders. So
Okay. Let's take an example in my portfolio. Elevate K-12 is a female founded platform to do virtual learning with one teacher, and your teacher can be anywhere, but the kids can either be in the classroom together or they can be in separate locations. And it's interesting because they're able to match underserved communities in terms of like math and science and foreign language teachers with excess teachers in urban areas, with the folks sitting in other places that don't have that. So they're growing pretty rapidly. If you think about that model, it is a recurring revenue business, but they pay the teachers. So there's a service component in there. That means that, when you're looking at a true SaaS business without the services piece, your gross margin is going to be 60 to 70%, 80% if you're really strong. And when you have that services component, her gross margin is probably somewhere around 50%, maybe even 40%. That means that the return profile is going to be lower than a true SaaS business. If a SaaS multiple is 5 or 10x, hers is probably going to be 3.5x. And we can check that. What we do is we go to PitchBook. We have a subscription there, and we'll look for comparable exits that have happened in the last 2 years in the space. And we'll look at, okay, what was your revenue at the time of exit? What was the exit price? And we can get the multiple on that. And we'll look at as many as we can find. It's usually 3 to 8 that come up. We take the median or the mean, whichever one makes the most sense. And then we'll do our own financial projections based on their opportunity and get what we think the final revenue is. And we usually do like 5 or 6 years from the time that we invest, even though it's usually 7 or longer. But we'll pick a point in time. We'll say this is the revenue we expect in year 5 or 6, and then multiply it by the revenue multiple. And then that shows us what we think that exit outcome is. And we can work backwards to see how much do we own at the time of exit based on the dilution that happens between the time we invest today and that event. And that will help us to figure out the math of the cash on cash return potential.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Sure.
Hey, Gail, I just wanted to say I went to Notre Dame too.
Hi, Katie. Nice to meet you.
Go Irish.
Oh, is the Irish thing related to Notre Dame? Sorry, I didn't.
We're the Fighting Irish. Is the so yeah.
Well,
Yeah, this is why there's
I'm Irish,
confusion.
but I didn't go to Notre Dame, so.
Exactly.
I'm not Irish, but I love everything Irish.
So when you were raising your fund, how did you go about getting your first LPs? Because it's usually pretty hard to raise your first fund, even if you've had, a syndicate and you've done SPVs. So how did you go about that? Did you go to some of your existing investors in the network and kind of build from there? How did you go about that?
Yeah, 80% of my LPs in Fund 1, and I have 91 of them, so a lot, are existing angel investors.
Okay.
So that helped because they had seen how we operate and what our process was historically. So that was, it allowed me to raise pretty quickly from that group. Now, when I go to raise the next fund and I have to go to a different set, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a lot of LPs to manage. So yeah, I know Jag asked a question about tools and you mentioned PitchBook, but what about any of the other backend? Like right now as an angel, I feel super overwhelmed with, and part of it is just, I need to be better about articulating my investment, thesis, so that I don't get everything. But I feel really inundated. And there have been a couple times when, I just haven't closed something, with Glassdoor or whatever, because it was just like I was frazzled. There was just so much coming in. So, and I do it using Google Docs, and I know Jag is going to take us through some of the tools that she uses. But I'm wondering the same question that she asked, like in addition to PitchBook, looking at valuations, what's some of the back office stuff that you're using to just stay organized, stay on top of things? To be quicker, you were talking about the lag that a lot of people have, the perception of lag that they have with angel groups or angel networks, syndicates. So yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Just so I know, are all of you guys investing individually or through syndicates?
I'm doing both.
Both. I do both as well.
Okay.
I'm individual right now, but would be open to syndicates in the future.
Okay. So the tools that our group uses are, we use something called Gust to get interest from the investors. And then once we invest, we use a company called visible.vc to do our portfolio company reporting. And to close our syndicate, we're actually just now getting on the platform of a company called Allocations. You may have heard of Assure. They do SPV closings. So I looked at Assure, Carta, Flow Inc., and Allocations and selected Allocations. They charge about $8,000 to $9,000 for the life of an LLC, which is pretty good. And then we also pay for a company called Seraph, SERAF, and it's seraph.investor.com if you want to look at it. You can actually pay for that as an individual, and that's pretty cool because you put in your data that you've invested and you can update any new changes to rounds, and it will show you what your returns are looking like. Allocations is building that into their system, which is great because we'll have everything in one place. And then in terms of, member database and well, I'm sorry, for our deal database, that's all in Copper. We use that for a CRM. I will be honest and say we may switch to Affinity if that's one you've been looking at. It's just the best.
Copper, but it's not.
Affinity pulls stuff in automatically from, I think, Crunchbase, and it's way easier, but it's a little bit more expensive. I think we're going to switch.
Yeah.
There's also another startup, Fifi. It's actually a startup that just serves individual investors. So, I could also get us to, look at that, maybe a demo.
Oh, there's one more that I am just getting set up on called Outpost. They're a new firm that's they automate deal flow. I'm so excited because I have so much right now, to your point. Oh my gosh. So, and it's a good problem to have, but I get these emails and I know that they're, mass emails, and I just delete them even though there could be gems in there.
Yeah. And then the other part is I know so many investors, but so if I'm passing on a deal, I would love to be, if I still think it's a good deal, but it's just not right for me, I would like to be able to pass that on, but I don't want to invest the time in trolling through my, databases to go who was that loves this kind of stuff? Just something to make that part easier, because you want to be helpful to other people. So, also hopefully they'll be helpful to you, and you want to be helpful, especially to, female founders and other founders that you want to support, even if you're not directly investing. So I'm gonna definitely check out some of the
story of my life, Angel.
Yeah, I know. I think of you every time I'm going through this.
Oh God.
I know. I'm whenever we have some time, I could spend hours with you just trying to learn from how you've managed it. So
well, I'm not sure I have the best process still, but we're getting there. Holy cow.
Yeah. And how did you attract, because if it was all very new and it was kind of initially happenstance or serendipity that, that created the initial opportunity in terms of the Irish Angels, how did you grow your network of angels?
I guess a lot of hustle. I would travel to different cities and and remember we started as a Notre Dame affiliated group. So I would find Notre Dame alums in the city and just invite them. And so as we switch and we don't have that requirement anymore, I'm considering things like marketing on LinkedIn to specific groups of folks. I am hiring a director of community content and marketing. So that individual will hopefully help us figure out, by having conversations with investors, what do you want and how can we build something for you? One of the things that I've realized is, our group only has 4% people of color. And I have tried and tried and tried, and it's really, it's just not good. We have not succeeded there. I am looking at how do I create a second tier of membership so that like if accredited investors or that meet that threshold per SEC, they pay, you know, $2,000 or $2,500 to join the group per year. Then there's going to be another tier where they don't meet that requirement, and we're going to figure out how to let them invest, not in crowdfunding, but what certification can we do to allow them to be accredited by certification. And they only pay $500 a year, and I want to allow the folks who meet the accredited threshold to sponsor people too. Like, I want to remove the barrier and let
Yeah.
people do checks of $250, whereas the accredited people will have a minimum of $5,000, because I've got to get people to make, you know, just get at bats. So when I find those folks, like, it's kind of going to be two separate ways that we go about finding them, two different messages, just hustling.
Yeah.
Great. Listen, everybody, Gail, this has been super helpful. My God, we could probably keep going. Just in the interest of time, I think we will call it a night tonight. We have our office hours tomorrow at 4 for anybody that would like to pop in. And we'll have some follow-up. We'll get all the recordings and stuff over to you. Report that Jags mentioned, and a few other items. So Gail, again, thank you so much. Gail's just put in her email address there, but I will include that also in the follow-up. So wonderful. Thank you, everybody. And thanks again, Gail.
Thank you.
And have
This
a
is
wonderful
great.
night.
I'm so happy that you guys are doing this. So
Thank
it's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Everyone.
care.
Good night.
Bye.